What was supposed to be a peaceful protest turned into a violent clash with the police. What followed was one of the most notorious trials in history. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. I am here today to share with you all my spoiler-free review of the new Netflix historical legal drama written and directed by Aaron Sorkin. We're talking about the trial of Chicago 7, which is available on Netflix today. And I'm gonna let you all know if it's worth checking out in this spoiler-free review. Before we dive into it, as you can see on the screen now, make sure you all follow me on all my other social media accounts. That way you can stay up to date on what's going on over here at Movie Files. If you are new to this channel, Movie Files, welcome to the channel. Make sure you all subscribe, and while you're at it, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my other Netflix reviews, other movie reviews, TV reviews, live streams, all the fun things we do on this very channel. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Really helps out the channel, but I also really appreciate it. And in the comments, let's discuss this film, both the positives, the negatives, your favorite characters, your favorite moments. Did you get emotional with this movie? Did you get frustrated with this film? And let's have a civil and non-political conversation about this movie in the comments below. So the trial of the Chicago 7, a movie I was very excited for. This film did have a small, limited theatrical run back in late September, and like I said up top, it is available to watch on Netflix now. Is it worth checking out? Let's get into the positives here. So first and foremost, the writer and director, Aaron Sorkin, he did not hold the hand of its audience in this film that follows the Chicago 7, a group of anti-Vietnam War protesters who were charged with a conspiracy of crossing state lines in intention of inciting riots at the 1968 Democratic National Convention, which was held in Chicago. So within the first 10 minutes of this movie, ladies and gentlemen, it didn't feel like a history lesson. In another director's hands or another writer's hands, I felt like they would have spent so much time on the minutia and just going into depths of the details of explaining every single thing about this incident that happened. But I felt like, again, within the first 10 minutes, Aaron Sorkin gives you a nice idea of where this story is headed and what it's all about, and doing a great job of displaying what went down in 1968. Now, keep in mind, in this understanding of the situation, this is coming from someone that was born and raised in Chicago, and I knew very little about the situation, but I felt like I got a great understanding after watching this film. Now, the use of, going back to this first 10 minutes of the film without getting to spoilers, the use of the old footage showing at that time, President Johnson informing the Americans about the new draft, seeing the assassinations in 1968 of both Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy, and how our main characters are deciding to take this trip to Chicago, saying goodbye to their loved ones, thinking it's going to be a, couple-day vacation to have their voice being heard, but boy, we know how that all turned out and how everything played out. And again, I felt like Sorkin did a good job of not beating you over the head and making it feel like you were in school all over again. So I thought that was really well done within literally the first 10 to 15 minutes of the film. So let's get into it. Aaron Sorkin, the writer and director of this movie. Briefly, before I get into my thoughts of him as the writer and director, let's talk about some of my favorite things that he's been attached to as a writer or a director. Some being 1992's A Few Good Men, one of my favorite legal films of all time. 2010's The Social Network, one of my favorite movies of all time. 2011, The Moneyball. 2015, Steve Jobs, and his directorial debut in Molly's Game. I feel like this film is the next evolution, and not necessarily the writer, because we'll talk about his incredible writing, but his next step of ascension of a great director. I feel like the trial of the Chicago 7 was his next big step, guys. I feel like the editing choices, the pacing of the film, that could have been easily 2.5 hours, which I would have been fine with because I was so invested in the story. The use of camera, the back and forth editing of showing real footage and the film's footage, and how he intersliced the two, and we'll get into his dialogue more in particular, but how he slices how certain characters finish other characters' sentences. I thought that his direction was really well done. Again, coming from Molly's Game, which I enjoyed that film, but I felt more the script was a little bit more involved in the actual direction, and I felt the script was a little bit more compelling in the direction, but I felt like this film was a great combination of him being a great, incredible, one of the best writers of our time, and also elevating his game as a director. So definitely very kudos to Sorkin and stepping his game up. Now, I don't really want to say that I don't see him winning Best Director. I don't really necessarily see him getting nominated, but I do know when it comes to him being a screenwriter, this film, as expected, was incredible in regards to the writing. I see the film getting the best script when it comes to the Oscars next year. The detail within the quick dialogue, the court scene, the tension, the intense dialogue within the court scenes was some of the best I've seen since A Few Good Men, which again, he wrote that film. And that's coming from someone that isn't necessarily a big legal drama fan. I'm not a big fan of that genre, whether it be on TV or films. They have tropes that just kind of are not suitable to my sensibilities, but I feel like the court scenes were so well developed. The dialogue was, again, incredibly well written, and I can't stress enough how great he is as a writer. So we got to talk about these performances, guys. The performances of this movie. This will definitely take the cake for the best ensemble when it comes to award season, and that comes for someone that I think for the longest time of this year, The Five Bloods was my favorite cast. But man, the cast in this film were clicking on all cylinders. Let's briefly go over this cast. You have Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Sacha Baron Cohen, Joseph Levitt-Gordon, Michael Keaton, Jeremy Strong. The list goes on and on for this incredible cast. Again, this cast is absolutely stacked and incredible and great, but I want to definitely go over some of my favorites that stood out to me, starting off with the man who is taking over Hollywood, recent Emmy winner Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. What I mean by taking over Hollywood, and his career is just getting started, I'm talking about up-and-coming projects like The Matrix 4, Aquaman 2, Candyman, and most recently being casted in Furiosa. He's killing the game, man. The dude is in his early 30s and is carving out his own lane and being a successful TV actor as well as a movie mega superstar. And I'm talking about Bobby Seale. His character in this movie floored me. It emotionally wrecked me. Him as Bobby Seale, the co-founder of the Black Panthers, with him and Huey Newton. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II stole every second that he was on the screens. I'm talking about the emotions that I had in this movie, the moments with him in the courtroom trying to cross-examine the witnesses because he didn't have his own lawyer. Having his voice literally taken from him in the courtroom was just, again, emotionally powerful moments with this character. The moments of him trying to separate himself from the Seven because the law wanted him to be seen in the public. Him being attached to the Seven made the Seven a violent group because of his association with the Black Panther. Without getting into spoilers, there's a moment in the courtroom where, let's just say, the judge, who we'll talk about, quote unquote, wanted him to be taken care of. And that moment was so infuriating and it had me so angry. I was in tears. I haven't felt that emotionally upset with a character in regards to the judge, how he was treating Bobby, since Ava DuVernay's When They See Us. I was just so frustrated with what was going on and the injustice that was going on in that court scene, in particular with Bobby Seale. Yahya, you won yourself another award, man. You will be winning the Best Supporting Role. I see no issues with that at all. But also highlighting Sacha Baron Cohen as Abby Hoffman, used mostly for the comedic relief, which you come to expect with Sacha, but when called upon, he hit those dramatic moments. Thinking of the climactic part in the movie where we see the riots taking place, but the conversation between this, which, by the way, the back and forth between Abby and Tom, played by Eddie Redmayne, who we'll talk about here in a second, was just absolutely incredible. But the moment where he tells Eddie about, something that he's doing his research on Eddie, and the back and forth between those two were absolutely incredible. Speaking of Sacha Baron Cohen as Abby Hoffman, we got to talk about his partner, his partner Jerry Rubin, played by the incredible Jeremy Strong. As the leaders of the Youth International Party, their chemistry, their back and forth was incredible. And Jeremy Strong, if you haven't been watching Succession, watching him in his acting roles, this dude is a killer. He is an absolute killer when it comes to being an awesome actor in any role he's put in. So going back to Eddie Redmayne as Tom Hayden, he, to me, if there were a quote-unquote lead in this movie, I would say it's Eddie Redmayne, because to me, he got the most character development from the beginning to the end of this movie. His motives were really kind of spread out a little bit more in regards to his way of changing America in his own way compared to Abby, and his personal motives of his upbringing and not really wanting to be attached to the Seven, right? And seeing the struggles that he went through of trying to separate himself. But ultimately, by the end of the film, he has his incredible moment that I won't really get into at the film's end. But definitely want to also point out Mark Rylance as William Kushner, the lawyer of the Seven, who you felt his frustration, right, in those court scenes, especially going against this judge that we'll talk about here in a second, and seeing the justice system screw over these men. and seeing his strength and seeing his knowledge within the court scenes, but also seeing him interacting with the seven when they're coming up with their strategy. I thought Mark was absolutely fantastic. The film's antagonist, which number one is definitely the law, the court system, showing you how it is created, how it is meant to not necessarily give justice, but meant to be kind of used to put people, to find them guilty. I thought the justice system was definitely an antagonist in this film. But the judge, Julius Hoffman, man, I have not been more pissed off at a character. Every decision that he made throughout this film, and it was played beautifully by Frank Langella. He did such a great job of pissing me off, and I'm pretty sure once you guys see the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. But transition into some criticism I had with the film does run at a very quick pace. Again, I said it up top, this film could have been 2.5 hours. I would have been fine with it because I was so invested in the story, but it clocks in at 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I feel like we got a solid understanding of this trial and the situation surrounding it. And seriously, we could have had a whole mini-series about every little thing that went down, all the surrounding characters, all the background players. All that stuff could have been really more elaborated on if they wanted to do so. But I felt like we got a good story within this 2 hours and 10 minutes. But I would have loved to have gotten a little bit more backstory from the characters and their relationships with their families. We get a brief moment at that with certain characters saying goodbye to their family as they're leaving for Chicago. And you see those family members in the courtroom, which was fine, but I would have loved to have seen conversations on the phone while those the members of the seven and Bobby Seale were in jail, right? I would have loved to have seen that because I felt like it would have maybe heightened the stakes a little bit more and made it a little bit more compelling for those characters. This is maybe a biased con or criticism because I feel like all the characters literally could have probably had their own individual movie showing how they were treated during this trial. But man, going back to Bobby Seale, his story to me was the most emotionally compelling story, if I'm being honest. I would have loved to have seen more from Bobby Seale's character, him being in prison, him being taken into jail, the decision of not having a lawyer, his relationship with Calvin Harrison Jr. as Fred Hampton. Just would have loved to have seen more of that story because, again, Yahya stole this film from me, and I thought he was absolutely fantastic, and I would have loved to have seen more of those moments and showing more of that injustice that was going on during that time. Very minor issue, and this is more of a Aaron Sorkin trope, which I like for the most part, but a lot of his characters, he does this in all his films and movies. Everyone's the smartest person in the room. So when you get that quick dialogue, it's just sometimes you're just like, man, everyone just has the perfect thing to say at the perfect time, which again works a lot of the times, but it just feels like everyone's just so smart, right? And he has like these kind of mic drop moments, kind of the crowd pleasing moments, which again is great, and it makes you feel like you're having a satisfying, into a certain story. But there are some times where you feel like you're watching a movie. You feel like this is a Hollywood-written movie when you have those crowd-pleasing moments, especially when you get to the conclusion of this really intense moment within the court scenes, which, again, works fine, but it sometimes takes me out of the moment, like, oh, yeah, I'm watching a movie. So if you kind of get what I'm saying in regards to the crowd-pleasing moments, especially when you get to the conclusion, you'll kind of understand where I'm coming from. But wrapping this review up, the pacing, the dialogue, the direction, all fantastic. The performances across the board, I didn't even mention some of the other players in this film, like Joseph Levitt-Gordon, Michael Keaton, who had a small role. All of them were fantastic. But again, those people I highlighted in my pros, especially Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, was fantastic. The performances were incredible. This film is timely, and the modern parallels to the 1960s to where we are now, showing the justice system is created to be what the justice system wants it to be, and not finding people guilty because they're guilty, but making them guilty. And it goes to show how important it is to have your voice be heard, how important it is to vote and be a part of that change. Overall thoughts, I'm giving the trial of the Chicago 7 a 4.8 out of 5, making it my highest rated film of 2020 and also making it my front runner for Best Picture. So that's my thoughts on the trial of Chicago 7. I want to know what you all thought of this movie. Let me know your pros, your cons, your favorite moments, your favorite characters. Let's talk about some of your criticisms. Again, let's have a civil, non-political conversation about this film, but I want to know what you all thought about it in the comments below. As always, make sure to like, share, comment your thoughts below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell so you don't miss any of my other videos. I really appreciate the support, guys. Thank you for watching this review. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you in the next video.